as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Darkin. Welcome to this space where automotive comes together to learn, to share, and most importantly, to execute. Thanks for choosing to be here on this Monday, January 28th. Coming up, what an episode we've got. We're cutting through the noise today. David Weiler's here, fresh off a once-in-a-generation luxury acquisition, Ferrari, Lamborghini, scale, and the hard leadership calls that made it possible. Plus, Ryan Rohrman joins us with a no-spin 2026 forecast, plus his plans at NADA, talk a little tariffs, margins, data ownership, and where dealers are leaking leverage. And then Scott Painter is back in the CEO seat as CEO of TrueCar after a $227 million take private. What changed now for your store as a result of this acquisition? It's not just theory today, it's strategy, it's pressure tested. But first, let's hit today's auto industry headlines. First up today, U.S. franchise dealerships generated a record 5.5 million Google reviews in 2025. That's up 25% year over year. This according to Widewail, who we'll have on the show today. And for the first time, communication issues are hitting sales just as hard as service. In late 25, nearly half of all reviews mentioned communication platforms in both departments. What's the problem? Well, too many sales staff positions are cycling every 6 to 9 months. That is a big problem in automotive, leaving customers dealing with undertrained teams. Inconsistent answers feel like deception to shoppers, even when the real issue is a lack of experience and process discipline. What's not changing much is price complaints. Well, even as vehicle prices climbed, negative reviews mentioning price stayed flat. Looking ahead, as sales turnover accelerates, inconsistent experiences are eroding trust. Not to mention, these reviews are now feeding AI systems that increasingly influence where customers shop. Next up today, Rivian is taking a very public swing at Washington State's franchise laws. We've talked a lot about direct-to-consumer EV vis-a-vis Scout Motors by Volkswagen. Rivian's pledging nearly $5 million to push a ballot measure that would let more EV makers sell direct to consumers. Right now, Tesla's the only automaker allowed to sell direct in Washington. Rivian has tried for years to change that through the legislature and failed. So this time, it's going straight to voters. The company's backing a coalition that says consumers should be able to test drive and buy EVs direct from manufacturers. To get on the ballot, the group needs just over 300,000 signatures by early July, with the vote targeted for November 2026. However, lawmakers repeatedly blocked similar efforts, including a bill last year that would have opened the door for Rivian and Lucid. That bill died quietly in committee despite support from environmental and business groups. What's the bottom line here? Well, Rivian, Scout Motors, Afeela, and a slew of others are testing how strong franchise protections really are in a changing market. And as a little editorial aside, I think there's a big difference between Rivian and Tesla that don't have a dealer network and an entity like Volkswagen trying to go direct through Scout. Two separate issues, but fascinating to see. Rivian will stay and keep you updated on those news items as part of the CDG news in future episodes. Next up, we've got another busy stretch on the dealership M&A front. Super busy with 3 deals spanning Chicago, the Southwest, and Central Florida involving both private and public buyers. First, Auto Canada has sold Toyota of Lincoln Park in Chicago to Morgado Automotive Group as part of Auto Canada's broader exit from the U.S. market after struggling to make its American stores profitable. Morgado has renamed the store Toyota of downtown Chicago. Next up in New Mexico, Giles Automotive has purchased a Kia dealership in Las Cruces from the Petrie Automotive Group. That acquisition gives Giles its first Kia store and expands the Louisiana-based group into New Mexico. That's a big geography change, bringing its footprint to 9 dealerships across 4 states. And in Florida, Penske Automotive Group announced it will acquire Lexus of Winter Park and Lexus of Orlando. 2 stores about 16 miles apart. The deal is expected to close in the first quarter and add roughly $450 million in annual revenue, strengthening Penske's presence in one of the fastest growing regions in the country. What's the big picture here? Well, whether it's portfolio exits, regional expansion, or public groups scaling up, buyers' interest remains strong, especially for Toyota, Kia, and Lexus stores. And don't forget, you can see this deal announcement and many more throughout the entire year by visiting the CDG Buy-Sell Tracker powered by the Presidio Group at cdgbuysell.com. And of course, that jingle makes us all happy. So thanks for getting that out. I love it. And last up today, President Trump is back, threatening to raise tariffs on South Korean auto imports to 25%, up from 15%, accusing Seoul of dragging its feet on a trade deal the two countries struck last year. In a post to Truth Social, Trump said South Korea's parliament is, quote, not living up to its deal, while the U.S. has already reduced tariffs on its side. But some analysts are skeptical the tariff hike actually goes into effect. A South Korean delegation is heading to Washington this week, and Trump has a history of using tariff threats as leverage before backing off once talks restart. But at the end of the day, if the new tariffs do stick, Hyundai and Kia would likely eat part of the cost to stay competitive, but not all of it. Dealers could see short-term buying shifts as customers try to get ahead of potential price increases. And that is a wrap on today's industry headlines. Yuli, welcome back.
Hey.
We're in the week before NADA. Pumped for what's coming up next week. You and I will both be there. We talked a little bit about it on the last show. I'll be at the American Financial Services Association, so AFSA, Vehicle Finance Conference and Expo. Be there Tuesday to moderate and do a keynote on a session. It's going to be super interesting. We're tackling the role dealers and lenders play in creating an elite customer experience. So how do we get rid of friction points as we go into finance and throughout that process to help get the customer financed on the road, worry and happy free. Then on Tuesday, Yuli, I get to take the stage at the JD Powers annual event with my friend Jeff Stafford and Dennis Gingrich of the Nilo Auto Group. We'll talk about multiple hot topics in automotive, including his switch from one CRM rather to another, and just what success he's seen there. And then later on Tuesday, I get to swing over to the Alan Haig M&A event. Alan's always an interesting event as you think about buy-sell activity, multipliers, and what's going on in that world. Car dealership guy himself, Yossi, will be there. Yossi will be on stage. I will not at the Alan Haig deal, but I'm going to be a benefactor of all the data and information that ends up getting shared there. So it's going to be fun. And then you and I, of course, Wednesday and Friday, we are doing 2 live shows at the Lot Links booth, so you can come by and see that. We've got a great lineup of dealer guests. And in fact, we've got a couple surprise guests that we'll have there as well. We're locking down a couple of those. And, a shout out, I just want to throw it out there. I think President Trump should come on and talk a little tariffs on the show. So the invite has been extended to the Trump administration, and I'd love to hear Elon Musk's take too on all things EV. So I've thrown out that invite as well. Probably won't happen, but you know what? If we could get them on remotely Wednesday or Friday, if you don't ask, you will never, ever get the shot at it. So, all right, we got an action-packed show today. Buckle up. Let's head straight into our first guest, David Weiler, President and CEO of the Jeff Wyler Automotive family. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, David. Gentlemen, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for working through your IT issues from the last episode. So we're thrilled that we were able to make that, put that together. So to our guests that heard you teased on Monday, we're here thrilled to have you on Wednesday. So look, you've got big news. You guys made a huge acquisition in the Ohio marketplace. Tell us a little bit about that acquisition and what prompted it.
Yeah, Sam. Well, we purchased the Midwest Auto Group. Some folks may recognize it as MAG in Dublin, Ohio, and it's 14 brands, none of which we actually had as of 2 weeks ago. So that'd be Ferrari, Porsche, that'd be Rolls, Bentley, Lamborghini, Volvo, Volkswagen, Lotus, Maserati, Mini, BMW, Jaguar, Land Rover.
Wow.
So it's a big step for us. It was a strategic move just in the sense that it's in our it's in our geographical circle where we want to do business, right? So we're located and headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. Really, anything that's within 100 to 150 miles of
Yeah.
Cincinnati is something that we kind of really want to look at. And you've got those 14 brands, and it'd be hard not to take a look at it.
Yeah. You know, I've walked across that campus in the past, and it is a beautiful property. All of what some people may not realize is all those brands that you listed are on the same location, right? It's an enormous campus in really a very upscale area of that community. That's a big get when you think about you're not currently a Ferrari dealer. You're not currently a Rolls Royce. Each one of those high end or exotics have their own nuances that you have to learn as a dealer group. What have been some of the biggest challenges as you've worked through this transition that you've learned that others may learn from as well by your by what your experience?
Yeah. Well, Sam, I'd say the biggest thing would be our support staff. Can you imagine doing 14 dealer applications?
Yeah.
And
no, I can't.
And,
no.
Right. And me having you kind of up your rear end every day, making sure we're getting approval process and closing, at the deadline that we agreed to. And oh, by the way, I don't know if you know these, some of these OEMs take holidays off, not only in North America, but
the Italians. Yes.
Yeah, in Europe. So that has been that was the biggest thing so far. But today marks our 14-day anniversary of the all-new TWC, the Wyler collection. So other than a foot of snow, a water main break last night, by the way.
Oh, wow. Oh,
that was exciting. And I forgot to mention that the day we closed, we transitioned from CDK to Techion at that location. So as you can imagine, everything has just gone
super
smooth, swimmingly.
Yeah.
It's been great.
So it's interesting when we made the acquisition of Ferrari in Lake Forest, one of the things we learned, that acquisition happened about the time the Pope died. And so to your point about international holidays, like there was the Pope passing, there were a couple of other holidays that just impacted the whole approval process, which caused it to take a hot second extra, David.
Yeah, no, it certainly was unique in the sense that they take a long time to get back from holiday. And but they were super helpful, and all 14 OEMs actually were great to work with. It was overwhelming initially, as you can imagine, just touching base with everybody, trying to get to know everybody on each of the teams of the OEMs. But our team, they're a lot better than I am. There's no way in hell I could have ever accomplished what they did.
Well, so let's talk about that. First, I'd love to ask, this is an enormous lift. To your point, a lot of OEMs, big geography, higher dollar vehicles, and new OEMs to you. What inspired you to say, hey, this is a step we want to take? This is an acquisition we believe in and we want to make. And then we'll shift and talk a little bit about your team and what made you feel prepared that way. But why this acquisition now today?
Well, as I told you earlier, it's in where we want to be. We're already in the Columbus, Ohio market. We've got a Chevrolet store. We've got a Stellantis store in that market. We've been looking to grow into it and expand in the Columbus market. And you get an opportunity like this, whether or not we could have pulled it off when we looked at it initially this past summer, that was one thing. But we were definitely always very interested in adding these types of brands to our portfolio. So these 14 brands, they'll join the 19 existing brands that we have. So the only brands we don't really represent right now, we don't have a Ford franchise, don't have Lexus or Subaru. So for our existing customer base, we went around for 52 years. There's really everything for our existing customer base, whether it's sales or service, new or used. We've pretty much got you covered. And then the other thing, this was like a generational acquisition, right? So I've got three boys that want to get into the business, and some already are. My nephew is in our business, and so it was looking at those four young men and saying, "Hey, is this something that you want to do?" Right?
Yeah.
I'm 53, and these guys are going to be around a hell of a lot longer than I am. So it was something that, like, yeah, this would be fun. This would
Yeah.
be great to do as a family. But so those are the three aspects that really piqued our interest.
So, David, when you rock, paper, scissored, who got the Ferrari demo and who got the Rolls Royce demo between your kids? Who won that argument?
Well, you want to know what pressure is, Sam, is like
Yeah.
when you got your three boys calling you every single day. Hey, did you do the deal? Did you do the
Yeah.
deal? Did you do the
Yeah.
deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, easy, easy.
Yeah. Very
But
cool.
yeah, no, I think they're good in their Silverado demos that they have now.
Yeah, yeah, good for them. Good for you, by the way. So,
Yeah.
so it's a big lift, and to your point, having a leadership team that can do that transition. Talk to us a little bit about your development strategy that helped you prepare as an auto group to make this acquisition. Because to your point, such a large gross sales volume value, adding that all at once to the group is big. You've got to be able to establish your own culture within this acquisition. Talk to us a little bit about your leadership strategy leading into it.
Yeah, the leadership and culture for us is huge, Sam. Um, we've made prior acquisitions. Let's say we've made about 10 transactions over the last 4 years. And we've been fortunate enough out of those 10 transactions, we've actually retained most of the people that are working at those locations. And in fact, every single general manager we've retained. We've only lost one during those recent transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that we're proud of, is that we we think that we have a culture that people embrace, and they want to be part of our team. We have at our corporate headquarters in Cincinnati, Ohio, we've got about 130 people that are just solely dedicated to the operations of every single location that we have. And so, as you can imagine, we've had countless people up at Dublin at TWC the last 2 weeks, and quite frankly, they've been up there 45 days before we close. So it's not going to be easy when you take on 250 new employees, 14 different brands, and you've had a culture that they've had for over 30 years, and our culture of 52. But it's not like we go in and have a sledgehammer and this is how we do things and want to do things. We give them a clear vision of where we are and where we want to get to. And so far in the last 10 transactions, it's gone well. And knock on wood, this one stays the course.
So, David, a lot of acquisitions fail more in integration than in negotiation, right? So you talk about that, bringing them into your culture and making them part of the auto group team. You mentioned one big adjustment. So going from CDK to Tekion, that's the DMS. I assume that's probably a change in the CRM. What drove that change from CDK to Tekion, and how do you feel like that gives you an advantage in the months and years coming forward with this auto group, Tekion versus CDK?
Yeah, so this actually started a little over a year ago, and when we looked at transitioning our DMS, it's not like I made the decision. That's something that's not the way our culture is. So over probably a 12-month period, we got together folks at different locations, from parts, from service, from collision centers, from sales,
Yeah.
from accounting, and listened to different presentations from different providers, and they made a recommendation, and their recommendation was Tekion. And so we made that decision that we are going to move forward with that transition of switching DMSs. And actually, we're going to do this company wide late spring. And then this transaction actually happened, and so we were at a crossroads. Kind of, do we just stick with CDK during this transition on this buy sell, or do we just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off? And we got feedback from everybody at the all new TWC, the Wyler collection, and our teams, and they said, let's just go. Let's get it over with. And it's never an easy change, but so we listened to them, and that's how we got to where we were today.
And is that DMS, CRM, all the different tools that are associated with that in the world? Because Techion's more of kind of an all-in-one solution, right? They try to provide
exactly. So it'll be all-encompassing from CRM, from sales, service, and parts, along with accounting. So all-encompassing.
So as you talk about this transition and to the dealers that don't have those premium high-end or those ultra luxury exotic brands, what operationally, David, are you seeing as the biggest difference between those ultra exotic luxury high ends and the brands that you've been selling all these years? 51.
Yeah, we've experienced over the last 10 years of being a Mercedes-Benz dealer, and that first transition when you go from your regular OEM to a luxury and then an exotic. It is a big step, but really when you think about it, it shouldn't be as a big step as you think it might be, because you want to treat all your customers the same way, right? Just because you're buying a Ferrari, you're buying a Maserati. If we want to treat our Stellantis customers the same way, we want to treat our General Motors and our Toyota and Honda and all the way down the line. We want to treat them the same. But we also are cognizant of the fact that somebody is going to buy an $800,000 Lamborghini, and it's not a $10,000 used car. And so having concierge services and knowing your clientele and what they want, and let them dictate on how they want the transaction to happen, whether it be sales or service, is probably something that you need to listen to a little bit more when it comes to the mainstream OEMs.
So I would love to sit down with you 6 months, 12 months down the road. One of the comments, because, and I'll share this with you, one of the comments are our general manager over the Mercedes-Benz store, which, by the way, love Benz. Best or nothing, they are all in. They're very committed to the consumer. They're committed to the brand, their retailers. He said on the Ferrari acquisition, because he works with both the Benz store and the Ferrari, he said, look, Benz, incredible, amazing, highest level of service we provided any of our customers. And then over to Ferrari, a totally different world, right? In terms of like earning vehicles and customers saying, hey, I want this, and you can't quite have it yet. And in fact, we're going to have Jay Leno on the show here in the next couple of months. A little spoiler alert. He agreed to be on thanks to Chase. And he's infamous for not being a huge Ferrari fan because he doesn't want to have to earn these different vehicles. And I think it's a little bit of FOMO by him, right? He's like, hey, I don't want something I can't have, because people that have money want to be able to buy it, but it is a little different, right? The approach is, David.
Yeah, it really is. In fact, about 30 days before we closed on this transaction, what do you think happened? My new Ferrari shows up.
Oh,
the one that I had ordered, and it's my third Ferrari,
ago.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm certainly very well aware of wanting to kind of make your way up the Ferrari food chain.
Yeah.
And in fact, I got another one coming too. So
nice.
Hopefully we can get it transferred over.
Yeah. What do you have on order? Are you buying from our store?
Yeah, I don't know, but Aaron said he would give me probably a half a dozen to a dozen Ferraris just to kind of get my feet wet to start. With future clientele.
No way.
The Persangway is coming here in the spring, and my 296 showed up literally 30 days ago.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Well, hey, so you represent a lot of brands, current, existing, and new. Just quick perspective as we wrap up. Who is winning right now in your portfolio of OEMs and why? And then who's struggling? Starting off with the winners. Who would you say is the top one or two best performing OEMs in your collection?
I mean, I think you've got to start with the who's who, the usual suspects, right? The Hondas, the Toyotas, the Mercedes. Those things have been consistent for us, right, over the years. We've got 35 different brands, and I think there's 67 now that we have multiples of. And so you're going to have the ebbs and flows. Some of these OEMs are cyclical. Those brands have, over the test of time, seem to have weathered the storm, whether it would have been '08, whether it would have been 2000, and then before that. But I'm optimistic. Even some of the brands that have struggled in the past, like Stellantis and Nissan, I think those brands have righted their ways. I think 26 is going to be much better for those brands. And as an industry, everybody is building fantastic cars, right? So the reliability across the board is great. The design across, and the technology across all these OEMs is great. So that's my take on these OEMs. Let me wait and see what these 14 new brands look like. But so excited to have these and offer them to our existing customer base.
What's your take, David, on the Volkswagen issue that's going on right now? The state of Colorado and other states are approving direct-to-consumer with their new Scout brand. A lot of state associations, including Virginia, who we had on earlier this week, Don Hall, also big, fighting to make that not happen. Should Volkswagen be able to go direct-to-consumer through Scout, through a new brand?
Well, yeah, I'm excited to go to Las Vegas because I can't wait to go to the VW meeting on Monday. I've been a Volkswagen dealer for 14 days, and I haven't had the experience that longtime Volkswagen dealers have had, and the ebbs and flows, and then the direct to consumer with Scout. So I'm gonna just sit back and see, and it should be an exciting meeting. But they're telling me that Scout is 18 to 24 months away. What does electrification look like? As we know, it's a soft market now with electrification. You put an ICE engine in that thing, I think it's a different story. But I think it's a wait and see. But I don't know that I would be too discouraged right now with the Scout brand, just because of the electrification. We've seen some of the brands haven't taken off quite like they could have, like with Hummer, and Rivian, and I know Tesla's soft now, but in some of the other electrics that we have that in our OEM portfolio. So I think it's a wait and see.
Well, David Weiler, President and CEO of Jeff Weiler Automotive Family, thanks for sharing with us your new acquisition. Truly a legacy play. It's exciting to hear as your next generation comes in, how that goes. And we'd love to check back with you 6 months to 12 months and just learn more about how this big addition to the Weiler Group takes hold. Thank you so much, David Weiler.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I hope I'll see you in Vegas.
We'll see you there. Absolutely.
Thanks, David.
Good. That's a fun conversation. I do wonder, everybody's always like, to me, they're like, hey, what's it like driving the Ferraris? I'm like, I'm not driving one. Yeah, I'm not driving one. Like, they stay on the showroom. They do very nicely there. And, but what a great get by that group. And
for sure.
And what a heck of a great group.
I guess I should have offered my Italian translating services.
There you go.
As well,
you should have.
Like I did for
you should have. Yes, you did. All right, let's talk stream companies quickly before we go to Ryan Rohrman. So today's episode is brought to you by Stream Companies Dealers. Stop chasing incentives. Retail ready from Stream Companies updates your offers in as fast as 4 hours and keeps them compliant. Stay current, beat out competitors, and drive more leads. If you're headed to NADA, visit Stream Companies at booth 3113W. Write that down. Or learn more at streamcompanies.com/retail ready. You can also scan the QR code on the corner there if you're watching the live show, or you can go into the show notes for more information there. Stream Companies, we appreciate you supporting today's content, including that great conversation with the Weiler Group, David Weiler, on this big addition to their auto group. Excited to see how that works out. Next up, let's transition quickly to our next guest, and he's been on twice, I think, before. It's always fun to have on this show. Today's third appearance. Ryan Rohrman, Chief Executive Officer, Rohrman Auto Group. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Good seeing you guys.
Isn't that fun hearing David? I mean, he's not too far from you and I. We share the
Oh,
Chicagoland. He's over there in Ohio. It's fun to see dealers growing and winning in the space. So in the green room, you guys obviously know each other, have crossed paths professionally.
yep.
Any thoughts about that big acquisition by them, other than what he said? It's a big get.
It's a big get. I love it. I'm all about legacy impact of family-run organizations
Yeah.
like his. I don't know, like your guys's. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
I think David said 58 years. Like that's a long time, and
Yeah.
bringing that third gen in. I'm third gen. Love that. We're about ready to celebrate 65 years here soon. So
Wow.
it's
Nice.
that legacy piece. It means something to me. I think it's huge. I love it.
As the third gen, so Aaron Ziegler, he's second gen in the Ziegler Auto Group. We just celebrated 50. It was a big event, and he had some words to say about being second. You're third. Presumably, you've got kids who will be fourth. What does it mean to you to be third and to continue the legacy? And by the way, your leadership style is very different than your grandfather's. Like, give us a perspective as the third generation.
It's that. I feel like I could talk a lot about that, but that is a deep question. I would say this: I truly believe that the car business as a whole inside the United States, it's very young. My grandfather with the stores that he had, I think he only purchased 2 or 3 of them. He was the originating dealer on every single one that he had. And at the peak of his career, he had just over 40 stores. And so I think about that, and how many franchises are passing out open points today? It's it happens, right? But it doesn't happen often, But that was only 60 some odd years ago, where that's how you grew. Now, fast forward to today, and all we talk about is acquisitions. And sure, there's acquisitions of 1 and 2, but it's acquisitions of these, some first gen still, but many second gen and some third gen, legacy businesses. And so that has been a huge shift. And even the way you run them, like my grandfather he was very much of like a wheel and hub guy. So everything circled around him. He was the point of contact for it all, but that's how he grew. It was like,
and he wanted it that way, right? Like he felt more in control of the organization that way. And even though it grew and it was large, that's the structure he appreciated. How are you different, Ryan? What's your approach?
I had the opportunity to work really close with him for the first 15 years of my career. And I tried it his way for a little bit, and it was tough. I mean, like I realized right away, I think we would be more efficient and we would grow if we actually had this executive team, and like even what David said, I don't want to mess his words up, but he had over 100 support people in a corporate center. I mean, we're bigger than the Rohrman group, but that is the power, I think, of multi-generational growth because, and I'll just speak for myself, my grandfather, great businessman, extremely smart, did not feel comfortable with the layers between himself and the store.
Why?
It's hard to say, like whether that was a trust issue, whether it was a control issue, whether just perspective issue. Like, did he see other dealers his age rubbing shoulders with those guys? Were they doing that? Because I sat in a lot of those meetings when I was younger, with the original dealers in these rooms, and they all looked at it the same way. Every now and then, one of them would have the vision to be like, hey, if I had a team of 5 people that was between me and my stores, I think I could sell more cars and service more cars and retain my people better. But it was few and far between. I think that was a second gen and a third gen and so on and so forth vision. And man, the scale is huge. Like we've scaled internally the amount of cars we're selling and servicing. We can't even compare ourselves to what we were before. And yes, our teams are stronger, but in my opinion, it's that middle section. It's that executive team that is their boots on the ground. They're there every day. They care. They're in the stores. Like, I can't physically be in every store every day. My executive team can, and they can provide that support, that training, and that's how you scale, in my opinion, and
So to your point, I think your grandfather's approach was maybe a generational difference, right? To your point, like it wasn't just exclusively him. Now, obviously, there are all the great stories about your grandfather in the Chicagoland. We've heard them, right? And he was a larger than life personality. But I think that's the way many dealers back then operated. What was the moment, Ryan, where you said, it's not going to work for us that way in 25, 26? If we want to continue to grow, we've got to scale in a different way. And what were a few of the first steps you took towards assembling that team that you had confidence in that caused you to take a different direction? Because it's a risk, right? You departed from what he knew and was comfortable with, and that's a risk to his legacy, right, Ryan?
Well, it is, and it's not, right? Because I think part of his legacy is he's the foundational piece. He built that foundation. It was up to us to what are we going to build on top of it? I mean, the foundation is secure. It's ready for more. But if we kept doing it the same way, we'd still have a great foundation, but we'd be missing out on all this opportunity for growth. And so I don't think it takes away. I think if anything, it adds, because in theory, he did the hardest part. I mean, he was a hand raiser. I still remember his stories. Even with Kia, when he got Kia, Kia was brand new. Mm-hmm. It just had come over the United States, and they were looking for Kia dealers, and he didn't want one. He goes, I'll take 4. And they're like, well, Bob, how about 3? He goes, all right, I'll take 3. And, so our dealer numbers, I got 1, 6, 9, in these different states. And I can tell that same story with Hyundai. I can tell it with Lexus. I can tell it with Acura, and some other ones. But that was his mindset. And there's also failures. Like Daewoo came over. He goes, I want 3 of those. We don't have any anymore. Suzuki Isuzu, we had those, and we had 1s and 2s, and they're gone too. So it was that he had an appetite for risk. And, he said, I don't want just one. I want multiples. And it worked, but that was his mentality. He's like, I'll figure out how we're going to support it. Just give me the franchise. I'll build the store, and we'll go from there.
Pivoting to your moment in time, Ryan, what was there a moment? Was there an event? Was there something that happened where you said, hey, we need to shift and we need to grow this executive team and look at this business a little differently, Ryan?
So I got my opportunity to take over the auto group April 1st of 2018. And when I got that opportunity, I knew I had to go. So one of my, I just really believe is that the team mentality. So we really ran in silos prior to 2018. Even if we were on the same road, that was your competitor. That was the mentality. Even if it was owned by Rohrman, you're competing against it. And I don't love that mindset. We are competing against each other, but we're on the same team. We're here to help each other do more, whether that's selling more cars or service, but really impact the communities that we're in. Because that's we talk about market share. It's not one and done. It is continuing to be an impact player in that market for the legacy of the Rohrman Automotive Group. And so right away, I was in every store every month. And that time we had 26 stores across 3 states. I was in every store every month, and I just had the same. I love the Linsoni ideology of clarity. So I was driving clarity. This is what we do. This is who we are. And so I ran, and that turned into what I call the Infinite Pursuit today. So it's a KPI program that unifies. We have just shy of 1,400 employees. So it unifies 1,400 employees under one battle cry. And so I started that.
What's it called again, Ryan? What's it called?
The Infinite Pursuit.
Where could people find out more about that? Or
I
is
can,
that you
I
created
can
it?
send you some stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not. It's we have a website, but it's hidden. But I have no problem
Yeah.
sharing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a KPI program for all the way up to director levels. We have KPIs for them, and then we just had our big banquet. It's my favorite event of the year. We have it in January, and it's just awards. We just pass out all the wins, and so that was super fun. But that started in 2018, and I was in every store every month, and I did that for 2 years, almost 2 years, like 18 months, and I realized we are missing out on growth because I can't be everything for everyone.
You're the limiting factor, right? Because your presence, if it's required, you can't be everywhere. Yeah.
No, and if everything gets stuck with me with that many people, that's a major flaw in my leadership style. And so then I started saying, okay, you're great at fixed ops, so I'm going to platform you here. And so like over probably another 18 month span, I went from 0 directors besides my CFO to 12. And so I still have those same 12 directors today, and they are the catalyst for growth. So Catalyst is their Infinite Pursuit program. I called it the Catalyst. So Catalyst is a spark. It's an ignition, something that starts something bigger than itself. Mm-hmm. And so that's what they do. Like that is the whole point. That's their role inside these stores, is to support them and start that spark. Whatever it is inside of that KPI for them. If it's in sales, we have that. If it's in finance, we have that. If GMs have their program, service managers, parts managers, office staff, they have their programs, and the directors are there to support it way more than I can be there, and I'm still in stores, but I can't do it at the level and consistency that they can do that.
So that allows you to scale infinitely. You can add as long as you've got platform and the right team supporting you. Very quickly, because I want to just touch on NADA before we let you go, and we're getting close on time.
Yeah.
Is there a key KPI that you look at, Ryan, every day, or two key KPIs that kind of come up from your executive team? And if so, what are they?
So the stuff that I track all the time, I'm a huge net to sale believer, and expense control. So I'm a big believer in the NADA composite. So I run an internal 20 group with my stores. So there's no other outside stores. And so we have that compiled into a 20 group, and we run pretty heavy on, you guys are familiar with that. So, those A, B, C, and D pages, we run heavy on that year over year, expense control, profitability. I love breaking down a dealership into 5 profit silos. Your parts, your service, your new and used car sales, and finance. And, we drive year over year growth in each one of those. And if one's not, we attack it, or if two's not. Like in 25, I only had one silo that performed worse than 24. And so, that's
what was that silo?
Used cars.
Used cars. Yeah. Yeah.
Used car profitability. And we're attacking that this year. We changed some KPIs. We changed some of our methodologies on what we will and won't do. And we soft launched it in December. We had 25% growth in used car sales in December. So I'm bullish that it's going to work out well for us this year, but we'll see. But we got to be adaptable too. So we can't just lock it in,
So this conversation is killing, because I want to pull every little thread. I want to know exactly what it is that you're adjusting in used cars, because I think everybody could learn from. But we can't do that because we got 2 more guests we got to go. Okay. Just one thing I want to go down the kind of the tunnel of. You're going to NADA next week. NADA, it's the annual convention for auto dealers, vendors, everybody's going to be there. I am in your orbit, so I talk to your GMs on occasion. You've got a great team. And one of the differences that they acknowledge generationally between your grandfather and you is your approach to NADA for getting best practices. Your grandfather said, absolutely not, nobody's going. Maybe you went, maybe he went. There was very key core people. You have a very different approach. You actually, or at least I'm told, I could be wrong, you require your GMs to go. You say, hey, don't go out to the parties, but you want them to have specific tasks that they come back for.
Yeah.
Give us like a best practice advice from your vantage point, a couple minutes for your GMs as they go to NADA. What do you ask from them, and how do you bring back best practices and make them part of your culture, Ryan?
So loaded question. So
Yes.
first, I do not require them to go.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No. It's an optional thing, but they know what my expectations are. And so some of them I normally invite up to 12 to 15 of them to go with me.
Yeah.
And I literally tell them, if you don't want to go, it's okay. Here are my expectations. And so I bet 80 to 90% of them take me up on it. So here's what we do. So, well, my grandfather, his big thing was NAD is a party.
Yeah.
Nothing comes out of it.
Yeah. Which is a generational thing. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because it was, but it's not so much, I don't think. Yeah.
It's shifting.
It could be. Yeah.
I think perspective and what you do prior to going is really big. Like right now, my calendar is booked. Like I know
same here.
If I know where I'm going to be every day, almost at 10 p.m. at night. It's exhausting, but it's done. You know, I'm still getting people asking me to do something. It's like, I'm sorry, I can't. I mean, it's like, try. If I have 15 minutes, I'll try to scoot over, you know, but
I reached out. You're like, nope, scheduled. I'm done. Yep. You're right.
And I wanted to, and that one, to be clear, is I'm coming in on Wednesday because of
no, I know. I'm teasing.
Anyways, you know, so my big thing is this: I rent a closed space on the very last day. So this year it's Friday, and I feed them. I have TV. I have TV in there, and they have to do a presentation for the group on their takeaways.
Ooh, I like that.
And
so
we've done that so the first year that I went in the role that I currently have, I felt like I had a posse everywhere I went. And I don't like that. Like, that's not my style. Like, I had like 12 guys on my heels, and I was like, we come in, you can't even fit 12 people in these booths.
Yeah.
That's like 4. And so I was like,
plus it's ineffective. Like,
learn
like, different things, right?
We want to see what you're looking at. I'm just like, why don't you guys go figure it out yourself, and then we can talk about it. And so then I looked from that. I was like, all right, next year I'll have 1 or 2 guys with me. Everyone else, go do your thing. Like, like inside of your role, whether you're a service guy, whether you're a general manager, whatever it is, go find new stuff. Like, one of our core values is innovation. We love to be innovative. Like, I love a change culture. Like, I am all about adopting change and attacking it. And so, and that took a little while to get used to, you know, like changing CRMs, changing DMSs. 5-8 years ago, I'd get, oh man, really? And today it's like, I just threw it out. Like, you know, my CRM company is going to freak out on this, but I threw it out. Some of my director teams was like, hey, what's your appetite for a CRM change? And they're like, well, look at it if you want. I'm just like, okay. You know, if I would have asked that question 8 years ago, they'd be like, please.
Who are you on now?
Worth, man.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, you'll get a lot of attention from that when you go by the booth. So
I
would love, I'm a competitor, so I can't be in the room when you guys do your last deal, but what a cool commitment as an auto group to bring everybody together and share.
Yeah, that's great.
Because really, everybody should go out and learn different things, get a different perspective, and then allow it to be a battle of perspectives at the end, which props to you for creating that culture of innovation.
And that ties into that evolution, you know, when you're talking about generationally, because it's what worked great 10 years ago, maybe doesn't work today. You have to be willing to evolve that process continually. That's smart.
Absolutely. Yeah. 30 seconds. So one of my favorite things to do after that pitch tank that we do, some of them would be like, right, I got a deal, but we got to sign it here. I'm just like, let's go. So we'll walk over as a group.
All 12 of you. Yeah, I love it. That's good. Nice. All right.
And I was like, all right, do the intros. And so and then, you know, there's 15 eyeballs or 30 eyeballs looking at this one dude. I'm just like, what? So they told me this is your best. Is that really your best? Because I can sign it if it gets a little better. And they're like,
I love it. So, all right, when you do the march over to the booth this time, call me. I don't need to be there for that. I'd love to see the march. We'll live stream that out.
We'll give you an extra 4 eyeballs to watch.
So absolutely. I'll let you know if we do it this year. I'll text you, call you, and I'll let you know.
Let's do it. All right. Well, Ryan Rohrman, Chief Executive Officer, Rohrman Auto Group. Thanks for being on the show today, sharing your perspectives. Look forward to seeing you next week at NADA. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks.
Sounds
man.
good. Good seeing you guys.
Thanks. That's fun. He's going to get a lot of attention this week at NADA, but I love that approach. What a great idea to bring people out. You know, he made such a good point about it doesn't make sense to all go around together.
Yeah,
Let's go
divide and
out.
conquer.
Well, and it's not even divide conquer. I think Ryan is showing some trust in his team that some people don't necessarily show of, hey, I trust you to learn something, understand it, and bring that perspective back and then advocate for it. And then in the circle of great ideas, let's pick some of the best ideas that come out of that. And then let's be open to change. And his point about DMS CRM change, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know many dealers anywhere in the country that would embrace or get excited about that type of a change because it's such a big swap. But I think that says a lot. Props to him and the culture he creates, that they're open to change and that they're always running towards the best option. Obviously, operationally, you got to balance the impact of change. Although, you know, as soon as I say that, we get better every time we change anything, right? So like in change, your execution sharpens. It just takes work. And, you know, everybody's got to be okay working. So, but very cool talking to Ryan Rohrman. Now we're behind. All right, let's go. Next up, let's go to Cuyler Owens, CEO of Widewail. Cuyler, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
How's it going, guys?
Welcome, Cuyler.
Good
Could
to
I
see
ask
y'all.
our signature question? We know you're with Widewail, but for those of us that don't know who you are or what you're doing, why don't you tell us how biz is in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, business is great. So I joined as CEO right around 6 months ago, and company's been in existence for about 8 years, and really focused on reputation management. And we're really shifting into customer intelligence and understanding a lot more about customers and grabbing that feedback and the details and the nuances and pushing that back into how dealers are operating more effectively to match the expectation of customers.
I expand on that customer intelligence because I have personal experience with Widewail previously in my groups, for reputation management and things like that. But pull back the curtain on the customer intelligence.
So super interesting, and this was a big part of the decision to join the team and take it to a next level. Reputation management largely has been, how do we get as many reviews as possible? How do we drive our score up? How do we make sure that when customers are searching for us, that Google results or any of the other review platforms are showing up positively? And what's interesting about that is we've been capturing over the last 3 years every single review from every franchise automotive dealer in the United States. So that's roughly 90,000 dealers, and we're closing in close to 20 million reviews that we have in our repository, where we're able to look at really good overtime metrics. We then tie those with some of the DMS data that we have, and we've done a good job of our team, and this is proprietary technology, where we are tagging the 25 most common sentiment topics that are coming up in these reviews, either negative or positive. And so we've been putting out these reports, and it's been largely a marketing activity. And what we're starting to see is once you get into the data, and we just put out a report, and that'll be available, I think it came out yesterday, where you can look at some of the general trends. What's interesting about customer intelligence, if you dial that down into a dealership, you dial that down into regional or by OEM or by vendor that you're evaluating, there's so much information that you can glean out of your customers. And there's so much information that you can capture from competitors, maybe that are doing a great job or winning across multiple different topics. What are they doing that's different? And customers are really explicit about what's happening, what they like, what they don't like. And it's a good way to really gauge on a trending level, rather than, that one customer that blows up and ends up in the GM's office or ends up at the principal and the principal's email talking about how this is, horrible and the worst experience ever, or somebody that has glowing reviews. There's so much insight in between those two extremes, and capturing that much data, analyzing that, and helping dealers understand what those operational opportunities are is a really important step that candidly hasn't existed in the marketplace at all.
So we led today's show with a news item by Widewail, right? It said that you guys generated, or Google reported 5.5 million reviews in 2025. That's up 25% from prior year.
Yep.
And you indicated in your research, the report you're talking about here, that communication was an issue in over half of all those reports. Two questions. Is automotive different from other industries? Do you have a sense of that? And if we are different, why is communication such a challenge for us in automotive, and what do we need to do to fix it? Do you have what to do about it once you collect the data?
For sure. A couple things there. One is, and there's more data around this, around the turnover in the industry, right? So there's a lot of new people showing up in your dealership, and training is a constant issue, right? That turnover is massive.
Yeah.
The second is, from a communications perspective, you're in a franchise model with an OEM that's pushing messages out and a dealership that's pushing messages out. There's inconsistencies that show up. And the way I talk about it with my team, and have talked about this even before joining Widewail, is this concept of no surprises, right? So the more consistent that you can be across that communication. I was talking to a dealer just yesterday talking about the need to check and figure out if you're getting the same story from multiple different points on the same team, right? So if your service advisors aren't saying the same thing the same way every time, if your sales team is talking about things differently, there's inconsistency that shows up there, and then surprises pop up. And so that is definitely a big piece of this. Communication is, and probably always will be, the biggest challenge for dealers to set expectations, then deliver on those expectations. Certainly there are other things that pop up, but communication is always going to be top of the heap.
So Cuyler, as you provide these reports to individual dealerships, you've done this for the industry. You've identified the challenge of communication. You've also pointed out pricing is still a challenge for auto dealerships, that
Correct.
Those pricing complaints are pretty flat, even though prices have increased. But do you have tips to ensure consistent communication between sales, service, OEM, all the different entities that are trying to message with the consumer, so that we can increase those scores?
Yeah. So as we go in with the dealership and we look at those things and we identify where those gaps are, turnover is one of those things. We have a way to identify specific staff members that are referenced in reviews and call out trends that may be emerging there. So if you have some folks that need additional training or are not delivering the right thing, we can capture those. And the consistency across, and there are some things that, where there are national promotions that come out, and those may not match with the regional stuff that is showing up when somebody walks into a dealership. Some of those things are captured, and there's communications and opportunities to communicate with the OEM as a dealer to show up and say, hey, we've gotten some feedback from our reviews that identify these things. A lot of it comes to training. And as you dig into the nuances of the scores below that, communication catches a lot of sins in the world. And so the so what below that, the details of, was it about pricing? Was it about professionalism? Was it somebody that didn't understand the vehicle or the capabilities of the vehicle, and that created a bad experience? Those are the nuances that we pick out. And so what we're doing right now is we're leveraging AI, and we're leveraging this massive database of information that we have to identify those that are doing a great job. And we have a recommendations engine that is now pushing out, full page documentation of, these are the KPIs you should be tracking. It was interesting just listening to your last participant talking about KPIs and how important they are. Those drive activity. And if you track those and manage those. And so we actually have recommendations of KPIs that will help to correct some of the pieces that are showing up. And the customer intelligence engine, which would be launching here in the first half of the year, later in the first half, we'll actually have all of that embedded, and we'll have full recommendations based on the best of the best, who we see that's doing a great job and whose customers are raving about them. We can try to replicate that.
So do you see, what's the financial impact when dealers are watching this? They're utilizing this AI. Is it CSI? Is it net profit? Is it unit sales? What changes to the dealer that's focused on figuring out, like, I don't know, I think about it, if I'm a service advisor and I'm not messaging clearly and I'm outed in this, like, I'm going to feel a little defensive about it until I realize, hey, you know what, if this helps me learn a better way, I'm going to become better as a result. It's an opportunity to become better and deliver better. Are those the key elements that improve over time utilizing?
Yeah. So there's a downstream effect of more effective communication, right? Which is trust, lifetime value of the customer. When you have customers that feel heard and feel like they've been treated appropriately and are willing to rave about what you're doing and sort of fit into that, those customers almost certainly will be back. There's, a lot of our dealers talk about service retention, and particularly with the price of vehicles going up and the need for those service customers to continue to come back even after they get out of that warranty stripe of, fourth year, fifth year, and a lot of people are holding their vehicles longer. That service revenue becomes really important. So that experience drives to lifetime value. You can then extrapolate into, service repairs, multi-point inspections, and whether or not they're taking the optional pieces or not. A lot of that has to do with trust. A lot of that has to do with pricing and the way things are described, consistency, of the way that those are delivered. So it has a downstream effect to the entire dealership. There are a lot of profitability levers. As we start to pull in some of the DMS data, we can really start to quantify. That's our task for this year, is to quantify the impact of these reviews and sentiment and topic tag performance on the actual profitability of the dealership. And what's important to highlight about our philosophy and the way that we tackle this, it's really easy to be in the reputation game and just say, hey, customers are mad, go fix it. We really put ourselves in the seat of operators. And so our goal is to help customers, our customers, the dealerships that we work with, find the line. And that line really is, what are the operational changes that you can make to drive profitability? And how does that align with the lifetime value of that customer and retention and loyalty? And there is a line, right? There are things that people will pay for if the service level is up there. They will continue to come back for a great service level, a great relationship with the dealership. They will not if you've gone over that line. And so our goal really is to help dealerships find that line and identify what operational changes they can make, maybe what pricing changes they can make. And when that starts to hit a nerve with their customers where loyalty is at risk, we can say, hey, we've identified that there are some things going on. And what's great about what we're doing is it's real time. It's every single day we're getting this information. It's not a year in arrears. It's not, and I can't wait to go to the JD Power event in Vegas next week and see the data that comes out. But think of that more as like the annual doctor visit. And we're kind of like the Apple Watch is telling, hey, your heart rate's up. You need to fix these things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, in 60 seconds, if you can tell us this, I think one thing that from data standpoint that you've collected that's super interesting, but we've just got 15 seconds really, where you did a survey on surcharges for credit card fees.
Yes.
Just very briefly, what's a takeaway for dealers as it comes to surcharging?
Yeah, so this is a perfect example. We did this with a large group that came to us and said, hey, we've got some concerns about customer loyalty based on us charging for credit card fees. And so when we did that analysis, we did across up to 86 stores where they had rolled it out, and we got the specific date when that was rolled out. And we started tracking the before and after activity. What was interesting about that is, yes, 0.2% of the reviews that came in were scathing. They were negative, and they did, to my example before, they actually showed up on the president's desk, and it was a big concern. And I think escalated the need to do this research project. What we found overall, though, is the rigor that was put in for training, for communications, for explaining it, for mapping out the line items, actually elevated their communication scores, and they had very limited impact on their pricing scores. So customers were happy about visibility and the understanding of the full communication because they were so focused on it. And actually the negative sentiment around the pricing was extremely limited and didn't really impact their performance of reputation.
Awesome. Very good. Cuyler Owens, CEO of Widewail. Thanks for being on the show. We'll catch you at NADA next week. See you in Vegas.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
We'll see you there.
Cuyler.
Thanks.
Hey, and by the way, apologies to our audience. I usually have a screen up that shows all the comments. We bring those comments into the show. Paul Salzman said, but I didn't have that in front of me till a little bit ago. So Paul Salzman says it's wild with all the tech and systems we have in place surrounding automotive. Communication is the highest failure point. Agree 100%. We've got to do better at communication. So we appreciate Widewail for bringing in their research, which gives us a glimpse and a look behind what's really going on and what the consumer sentiment is. Finally up today, Scott Painter, founder and CEO of TrueCar. Scott Painter, welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott.
Thanks for having me back. Good to see you guys.
Scott, good to see you. Thanks for being back. It's been a little bit since you were last on, and your acquisition wasn't final. So you executed this $227 million acquisition of TrueCar, leading a group of strategic investors. How's the acquisition going? How's the transition going, Scott?
Well, so we closed the acquisition on Wednesday of last week. So that brings sort of a 2-year chapter to a close.
Big, yeah.
The last week has been a lot of meetings. One of the things that I really want to do is get to meet my team. I have been slowing down to actually meet with every single employee. We've got almost 400 humans that I've got to meet. So I've got, quite a bit of backlog in terms of getting to meet the team. But it's been encouraging. First of all, it's been nice to come back and sort of get, I've got some employees that have been there since I was there in TrueCar 1.0. And
Yeah.
to see those sort of OG, long haulers that are really big believers in helping dealers to find customers and to sell cars digitally. I've also just, been overwhelmed by, how much has changed in auto retail and the digital auto retail front. I've got a ton of media questions about, new entrants like Carvana and how we're going to position against them. So I am still in sort of listen mode. And,
Yeah.
my real goal over the first quarter here is to make sure that I don't do something that resets the company and sets us back at all. I am not only taking the time to listen to our employees, but I'm also talking to all of our key accounts. I'm talking to all the dealers
Yeah.
that are on the program and getting a lot of really positive feedback. I think, what I'm hearing very clearly is even though consumers have more access to information and better digital tools than they've ever had before, it's harder to make money and acquire customers digitally than it's ever been.
Yeah. The higher
And
cost, much higher
yeah,
cost per
I
customer.
think it's a two-sided sort of conversation because I think buying a car in 2026 for a consumer is just as challenging as it always was. I
Yeah.
think that while the game is different and certainly consumers and dealers go to market differently than they ever have. When I was building TrueCar 1.0, I had to spend a lot of time convincing dealers and partners that the internet was a big deal. Obviously, every dealer that goes to market today goes to market digitally and advertises their cars for sale online. 100% of consumers are now using digital technology to go to market. One thing that is totally unique and new is that we're completely on the other side of smartphone adoption. All consumers have smartphones, and not all dealers are yet communicating with those consumers on the smartphone. And the mobile web and sort of the syndication of content and projecting things out to a .com is one layer of sort of engagement. But when a customer is in an app, for example, it's a frequency, it's a two-way conversation, much more high fidelity, and that's I think on its way.
So, Scott, last time you were on the show, you couldn't talk too much about this because you were still bound by a bunch of confidentiality. But
Yep.
in this TrueCar 2.0, you're seeking to bring the company into some new realms. In 1.0, there are some dealers that might have said, "Hey, TrueCar had a little bit of trust issues with dealers. You fought with dealers in some cases." What do you say to the dealer now that says Scott's back? There were trust issues in the past. What are you doing differently this time to make sure that there's trust, transparency, and a connection with the dealers you serve and work with?
I think trust in TrueCar 1.0 is about the fear of the unknown. Today, I think dealers are much more comfortable with the idea that auto pricing is transparent and upfront, and consumers have much more access to information. So a lot of the unknowns and the unanswered questions have already happened. And so, I'm not coming back to reset or, come in and be provocative just to be provocative or disruptive. I think we want to understand why TrueCar works and how it can best serve its dealers as partners. There's absolutely a flywheel here between helping consumers to save time and money when buying a car and selling more cars for dealers at less money. At the end of the day, if we don't make the TrueCar value proposition true for a consumer, we fail. If we don't make it work for the dealer that they can truly sell more cars for less money, we fail. And I was just asked about, are you going to bring back, paper sale billing? And TrueCar lives in a very highly regulated, compliance-driven environment where we have billing models in all different states that are based on lots of track record and lots of history. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your billing model is. If you're a dealer on the program, the bottom line is, what does it cost you to sell a car using this technology, using this program? And I think that TrueCar has to be accountable to its dealers for that result. And what we want to see is another real sort of refocusing on accountability. TrueCar is not just a lead generation or classified marketplaces. The goal is not to get dealers just more leads. It's to get them really high quality introductions to customers that are in market and ready to buy a car, and help to give those dealers the toolkit that they need to sell that car a high percentage of the time. But at the end of the day, the real measurement of TrueCar success is how many people buy a car. I believe that where TrueCar was in 2016, we were seeing over 1 million consumers a year buying a car using the platform. I know there was a lot of friction, a lot of concerns about that fear of the unknown. Whereas today, TrueCar is about a third that size in terms of actual results. Yet TrueCar has 11,500 dealers. When I was running the company, we had closer to 3,000 dealers. So it's a much larger company today.
Yeah.
You've got more
Yeah.
dealers on the program. You've got 1.5 million pieces of inventory. I was asked over the weekend, how are we preparing to position ourselves against Carvana? And I think Carvana is brilliant. I've got a lot of respect for what those guys have accomplished, but we're not a car dealer. We don't
Yeah.
sell cars.
Yeah.
We are a platform, a technology platform, very much like Uber, helping an Uber driver and an Uber consumer to find one another. Uber is just that platform, helping those two to communicate. That's our role here. And, we don't have to, Carvana is a used car dealer, and they've captured the zeitgeist of doing a lot of this online. But at the end of the day, we're a digital auto retail marketplace. We've got a much broader network. We've got, lots of brands, lots of cars, lots of dealers that we serve. And the value proposition is just fundamentally different.
So I let our CDG circles know, it's a collection of dealers that you were coming on the show today, just asked for questions. There were a couple, 2-3 themes, just as we get towards the end of our time together. I wanted to make sure I got out. One was some digital lead generating tools end up being kind of a race to the bottom in terms of pricing. How are you thinking about that? Is it a race to the bottom? How would you respond to a dealer that says that's what TrueCar and some of the other digital lead providers are doing?
First of all, I do think that price matters. If you're shopping for a car and you really want to understand the value proposition that comes off of transparency, it's about first understanding and being able to recognize a fair price, and then being given a clear upfront transaction-based price that represents savings. So while certainly customers who are affinity members and who are part of these groups are expecting to save money, there's a very, very real difference between list pricing or advertised price and what dealers actually sell cars for. We happen to be in one of the largest discounting cycles in the automotive century. And the reason for that has everything to do with interest rates, sort of the pandemic effect, supply chain shortages, tariffs, all the concerns about the economy. But the conventional wisdom that you go into the car dealership at the end of the month, you get a better deal, is a real thing, because most consumers don't really understand that when you drive by a car dealership and you see hundreds of cars on the lot, the car dealer is paying to floor that car every month, and they pay interest and curtailment. And so they are motivated to move metal. And when, for other reasons that are external to the dealership, metal is moving more slowly, certainly there's motivation to move that car at a discounted price. We would never want to come back and say that dealers have to be at the bottom. And this notion of a race to the bottom, I think, is based on the theory that if all dealers compete for all consumers on price alone, that ultimately, because new car dealers in particular are selling an appliance, a commodity that comes off of an assembly line, that there will be this race to beat the other dealer based on price only. TrueCar was always built on this affinity network. So while you've got 8.5 million in-market shoppers going to TrueCar, only about 20% of those shoppers are really coming through the affinity channel. And not everybody's entitled to the same level of discount or savings. And so I think it does start with recognizing that while TrueCar does need price clarity, there's a ton of room here to make the dealer a lot of money. And I do think that we have to live in that balanced equation where we're helping the dealer to retain gross.
Scott, if you don't highlight and ask dealers to compete on price on a digital platform like TrueCar, how do you accentuate the value of other components of the car buying cycle? Like, if it's not price at TrueCar, what is it? How do you highlight some of the other value props?
Yeah, so clearly it's a better process. It's a digital process where you're discovering what's available in the marketplace, but you're also looking for a network of dealers that are leaning into affinity groups and to specialty organizations. The 11,500 dealers on the TrueCar network are not all dealers, right? You've got about 2/3 of the dealers, a little over 8,000 dealers are franchise dealers. TrueCar represents nearly half of all franchise dealers, and the rest are independent dealers. I think that you need to recognize that those are the dealers that have said, we're going to lean in. We're going to understand that a digital customer wants a different kind of conversation. They want to have upfront information. They want transparency. They want to have better clarity about what their out the door costs are going to be. I do think that there are 4 transactions when you're buying a car that we need to acknowledge. One is not just, one is negotiating for the price on the car, clearly.
Yeah.
And you want to
Yeah.
you want to feel like you're getting a good deal. The second is that 94% of people do not pay cash for their car.
Right.
75% of people who buy a car have a trade-in. They can't have two cars in the driveway at the same time. They can't finance two vehicles. So if you're not solving all these different dimensions of the problem, 100% of consumers need to insure the car they're driving to drive it on public roads. So if you're not addressing all the dimensions of the transaction, you're just not going to sell a car.
So this is interesting, Scott. When you look behind the curtain of this private acquisition, to your point about the different components, insurance and financing, your strategic investor partners are interesting. PenFed Credit Union, Zurich North America, who I worked for, almost a 2-decade career, incredible company, elite. Props to everybody at Zurich. AutoNation. What is your investors in this $250 million acquisition say about your future? Why Zurich as an example?
Well, sure. Well, let me start with PenFed. You brought them up first.
Okay, sure.
PenFed is one of 4,600 credit unions. And PenFed, while focused on military and federal workers like USAA, has a national charter. So they're one of 6 credit unions that actually can lend money in any U.S. state or territory. Because they're a nonprofit, they have a 200 to 400 basis point advantage over a retail bank. And at the end of the day, a lower interest rate ladders up to a lower monthly payment, greater affordability, and being able to get more customers behind the wheel of the car. So I think we do like the fact that we've got lenders, partners, insurance partners that are really focused on the balanced equation of helping consumers in their journey and also helping dealers to make more money. So to the extent that, we're working with any of these partners, it's because they recognize the fundamental truth that TrueCar is talking to an in-market car shopper who's about to buy a car. The thing you do before you buy a car is you check price, and that's always been the value at TrueCar.
What about Zurich?
Well, Zurich is very focused on helping dealers to make profitability. Not all dealers use Zurich products. Dealers are going to have the choice to be able to use whatever products work for them. What we do want to do is bring those aftermarket products, whether it's a vehicle service contract or gap protection, into the conversation with the consumer. We don't want there to be any mystery when the consumer sees the price of the car. Showing them the total cost of ownership, what the cost is going to be out the door, means creating greater visibility for that consumer during the shopping journey. Zurich is going to be giving dealers in the TrueCar network more optionality, more products, more services, more opportunities to make money. I think we're also looking to help them reach out to customers who might really be thinking about their car shopping process on the side of where can I get peace of mind? What do I need? There's certainly a great opportunity to appeal to customers with a vehicle service contract who maybe haven't chosen that for their existing vehicle.
So do you foresee a day as you head down the road with TrueCar where you offer the financing and the F&I and some of these other options outside the dealer network, outside the dealer site? Maybe similar to what Amazon's doing, right? Amazon has their F&I partner. They've got their lender partner. And I'll tell
you what we're not going to do. We're not a dealer. We don't compete with dealers, and we're focused on being a technology platform that helps the dealer and the consumer have a really good conversation. And I do think we need to step up the fidelity of that conversation by moving from the mobile web into more of an app-based conversation whenever possible. We're sitting at a point right now in sort of the technology arc where smartphone adoption is nearly complete. Everybody uses a smartphone today. The ability to increase the level of engagement that a dealer can have with a consumer, you wouldn't use Uber if you had to use email as a way of communicating with the platform. The smartphone really unlocks a level of fidelity and capability that has never really been seen before. TrueCar 1.0 didn't have that capability. When I was actually out raising money from investors, I had to tell everybody that the internet's going to be a big deal. Obviously, we're on the other side of internet adoption. We're on the other side of smartphone adoption. I think, artificial intelligence raises a lot of really interesting questions about how much more we can do to help the dealer sell a car. But it really is that. TrueCar is not looking to get into that transaction and be the counterparty to the customer or be an auto retailer. We're really about helping the dealer and the customer and bridging that communication divide.
Yeah. So AutoNation as an investor, just last one. Yeah, I got to ask because the collection of investors is fascinating. You've brought together a group of unlikely cohorts in this.
You know what? I don't see it that way. I think
Okay.
that, first of all, AutoNation is part of a broader network. AutoNation has
Yes.
340 rooftops.
Yeah.
TrueCar has 11,500. So the overall TrueCar network and AutoNation have to work really seamlessly. AutoNation, is one of our bigger customers, no doubt, and they certainly, like PAG, Sonic, Lithia, Hendrix, Asbury, all these large consolidators all think about how can they be more digital. Some have their own initiatives like Driveway with Lithia, and so I think that in the case of AutoNation, it's also worth noting they were already a shareholder at TrueCar. So they're leaning in and try. I think the thing
It's a
that
continued
TrueCar,
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing that TrueCar can deliver, not just to AutoNation, but to all dealers, is insight into where is the inflection point where you can increase velocity and retain gross. There's a massive get, right now, most people don't
And
know, but we see it so clearly in the data that the average advertised price for a new car is about 6 to 7% below MSRP. So on a $59,000 car, that's a $55,000 advertised price. But in terms of where those cars actually get sold at, it's closer to $50,000. I mean, there's an additional 5, 6, 7% that all dealers are giving away when the customer says, I'm interested in shopping for that car. And of course, as soon as the dealership starts talking to that customer, they start negotiating and that price tends to come back down to reality. I think that what we're really excited about is developing data-driven tools, AI-enhanced insights, predictive analytics that can help dealers to price the car at market and sell the car a high percentage of the time. And I think this is really important, delivering the highest gross retention at the price the customer is at, not having to force so much sales tactics as a way of getting the customer into the car.
So a fascinating goal, fascinating mission, because truly it is an interesting, one side is great relationship with dealers, help them preserve gross. The other side to the consumer is most competitive price, best selection, right? And so, you're trying to do something that a lot of digital lead providers are doing and nobody's really completely solved for, Scott. Fair?
Well, one beginning thing here is, I think there's a radical difference between a new car shopping experience
Agreed.
and a used car shopping experience,
Agreed.
right?
Yeah.
And I think, TrueCar's real moat has always been that 75 to 80% of consumers who go to TrueCar search for a new car. And that also reflects the fact that the TrueCar customer cohort is a little more educated, makes a little bit more money. They are not a used car shopper per se. It doesn't mean that they don't have a willingness to look at a used car. But I think the name of the game in used car, VIN-based, classified marketplace, lead gen businesses is variety.
Yeah.
And TrueCar does not have all the dealers and have all the cars, and so it's not going to win on that. I think that our real mode is to focus on new car pricing transparency, help franchise dealers predominantly sell new cars, help them get the trade on that trade-in when it's possible, and help them get the auto finance business, depending on whether that's a captive finance company or a subprime auto finance opportunity. So many of these large dealer groups today have their own auto finance capability internally. We want to solve as much of the customer's problem as a platform, but we want to help the dealer to do that. And I think that there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity. Certainly, AutoNation being a part of this effort reflects the fact that we started with how do we create a balanced ecosystem that's going to really help the dealer and help the customer? Because if a customer feels good about their price, if they feel good about their process, then they're going to sell the car, they're going to buy the car a higher percentage of the time. And one doesn't happen without the other. It's not as though this thing is going to be all consumer good and it's bad for the dealer. You cannot drive grosses down and force the dealer to lose money.
Yeah, you got to balance. Okay, will you be at NADA next week? Will you be in Vegas?
Turns out I'll be there all week. I've got so many meetings set up, and it's really been sort of like old homework. I've had Groundhog Day every day since we closed this thing. I'm going to be meeting with the ATAEs and Don Hall and Brian Moss and all these guys, and I'm also meeting with all our big dealer customers and OEMs. It's been a pretty big whirlwind.
So a CEO of TrueCar, just curious, Don Hall asked you about it. He says, hey, this Scout deal, being able to sell direct in states like Colorado, Utah, and others is a problem for the franchised auto industry. What's your take on it? Is it much ado about nothing and just a natural next step in the evolution of automotive, or is it something franchise dealers should continue to push against, Scott?
You know what? I think there's a lot of concerns that we got to be thinking about in the modern auto retail context, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Carvana buying, new car franchises, whether it's, Scout going direct. I think, Tesla, Lucid, Polestar, all these companies have really opened up a conversation about what the future looks like. I really do believe that more of the process is going to be digital. And I think where we're positioned is to really help dealers navigate that digital conversation as we move to better technology, like an app-based conversation, integrate AI. We're going to be doing it in partnership and in service of our dealers. The Scout thing is not really an issue for us. We're not going to be directly selling cars. We are a business that works with and through dealers, and we're really about enhancing the conversation and the link between the consumer and their dealer.
Scott Painter, founder and CEO of TrueCar, thank you so much for being on the show today. See you next week in Vegas, Scott. Thanks for being on.
Yeah. Always good to be with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a fun conversation. It's interesting to see as their vision starts to unfold. You can see the different pieces coming together and kind of that direction you're headed in. As I mentioned, the shock to me, my former 20-year career at Zurich, like to see them get in to a partnership with a company like TrueCar, I think that's a big play for them, and it'll be interesting to see that unfold as it does. I saw some shades of things, and I tried to connect the dots, but he didn't totally go there. So it'll be interesting to see, what comes of that. But Yuli, Friday, we're doing our video competition unveil. We'll have 4 guests, 4 videos. We're going to do the whole thing. We ran long today. Thanks for patience, everybody. Thanks for watching Dealer Live. We break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here live every Monday, Wednesday. We'll be back Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So if this is your world, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever miss a beat. We'll see you next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.